the hope or the bull case for Bitcoin is that it's been a real retail product, but that an SEC-approved product could generate a lot of institutional interest. How much institutional buy-in are you already seeing on the back of this recent announcement, if any?
We're seeing quite a bit. So if we look back at 2019, about 71% of the assets we raised last year were coming from institutional investors. But I think that Grayscale Bitcoin Trust becoming an SEC reporting company really should signal to the community that our regulators are really willing and able to engage with the digital currency asset class, and hopefully doing so also opens this product to a broader group of investors.
What does that reporting company designation mean in practicality? And what kind of stamp of approval, if that's the cliche to use, is it?
It basically holds the reporting obligations for Grayscale Bitcoin Trust to be the same as any other public company or any other, exchange-traded product or other financial instrument that investors are using. So you're seeing Grayscale Bitcoin Trust now going to file 10Ks, 10Qs, already filing 8Ks.
Gives you some confidence about accounting standards and governance and all kinds of things like that.
And this is what investors want. If they're going out into the market and trading in publicly traded instruments, this is the level of disclosure that they want, and quite frankly, that investors deserve.
And so for you, obviously, this could make you the major player when people are looking for an ETF as a way to get access to or exposure to Bitcoin. So the price of Bitcoin is now about $10,000. How much of the run-up do you think is on news of the democratization of the kind that you're talking about? How significant is it to unlock this method of owning Bitcoin as opposed to the more traditional ones?
Well, I think the past year certainly solidified for investors a couple of things. First and foremost, that Bitcoin is now a safe haven, a store of value when there are dislocations in the market. And investors can really think about that role, which gold and bonds, quite frankly, used to occupy. Now Bitcoin's part of that conversation. But I think it's really important that investors understand that the prevalence of the Grayscale family of products is really about access products. This is now opening the door to more investors participating in the asset class. And there's a lot of catalysts out there that are causing more interest. We're seeing it with coronavirus. We're seeing it with tensions in Iran. We're seeing any of these dislocations in the market as another reason why investors are looking to it, not to mention the next Bitcoin halving coming up this summer.
I was going to say that crises drive people to hard assets. I'm not sure Bitcoin is a hard asset, but it has that function in a portfolio, I suppose.
It does. And as investors are looking for new uncorrelated return streams, Bitcoin is now really part of that conversation.
So a couple of years ago, a peak was marked by the futures market. Do you think, is there a kernel of worry in the back of your head that bringing an ETF would mark another high point or top in the Bitcoin or
I think what we're more focused on is really the development of the derivatives market around the asset class. We all have to remember that Bitcoin and this asset class as a whole didn't even exist 10, 11 years ago. And so the fact that we now have futures and seeing the incumbents, the Fidelities, the CME Group, Square, Robinhood, all these types of companies getting involved in the space, it really lends itself to validation that the asset class is here to stay.
Hey everybody, hope you guys are doing well today. I would imagine those that bought on the dip are really happy and are doing extremely well today. And I think that video does a pretty good job of explaining partly why we had this huge rally. Like I was mentioning in my previous videos, the Bitcoin safe haven narrative is taking hold, and I think it's going to spread as the digital asset space becomes more legitimized. People who are running funds, who are active investors, they need to be fed strong fundamental reasons for owning an asset. Even though we here in the United States are doing well, everybody around the world is showing weak economic data. So in that setting, it makes it easier to sell that safe haven narrative to investors. Now, I recommend you guys watch this video in its entirety because towards the end, I'll give other reasons why I think Bitcoin is going up. Because if it was just that safe haven narrative, then why are these alts popping? I mean, we saw Tezos, EOS make 30-40% gains. Obviously, there's something else at play here, and I'll discuss that towards the end of my video. And on my Discord channel, and by the way, folks, if you haven't joined it already, reach out to me on Twitter, and I'll give you full access to that channel. But on that channel, a lot of my followers were asking me to publish a video on my portfolio allocation. It's very likely that I'll do it within the next 7 days. If that's something that you're interested in, make sure you guys subscribe, click the notification bell so you'll be alerted when I publish that video. And if you don't want to join my Discord because you're not familiar with the platform and you want to make recommendations, make sure you guys comment down below. Let me know what I'm doing wrong, what I'm doing right. And again, if you have any video recommendations, make sure that's expressed in the comment section below. And if you guys like the video, you appreciate the work that I'm doing, make sure you guys smack that like button. With that, let's go ahead and dive into this video. The National Bank of Egypt joins RippleNet. We're not going to go into the nitty-gritty details here. You guys know the previous news that I published on Ripple. They raised a lot of money. They have a huge war chest. They raised $200 million. I understand a lot of the crypto community doesn't like XRP because it's highly centralized. There's very nefarious actors that are part of the team. Me personally, I've taken a more agnostic approach because when it comes to making money, I tend to be very neutral. And given all the partnerships and all the deep connections that they have with large legacy players, it's hard for me to believe that when Bitcoin, let's say, goes to these astronomical numbers that people are predicting, that Ripple is just going to sit there and do nothing, especially after all these partnerships. And if you look at the nature of these partnerships, they all revolve around remittances. And these banks and players that they're partnering up with tend to have a very positive public opinion about RippleNet. In fact, in this article, it says that the vice chairman of the National Bank of Egypt says that more than 300 banks and financial institutions spread in all countries of the world, and is expected that that number of subscribers to that network will grow exponentially, in addition to the mechanisms provided by the service that contribute to supporting liquidity management as well as increasing the national bank's foreign currency earnings. In other words, a lot of these banks and institutions around the world tend to be liquidity silos, and with this partnership, it's basically going to allow them to pool that liquidity. And consequently, that will enable faster transactions because the systems implicitly would be more integrated if they're pooling liquidity. And just to show you guys how big of a bank the Bank of Egypt is, the bank was established in 1898. It has over 16,000 employees, 413 branches, 3,800 ATMs, and in 2016 posted total assets of 63 billion and a net profit of 595 million. And if you're on my Discord, right around here, I told you guys that I see Ripple pumping and pumping hard. And I even took out a small position. I don't trade with the large bag. I trade with a very small position relative to my overall portfolio. But you can see here that I've made a decent profit. And if you're interested in learning how to trade on the go like I do, I've published a video in the past. I strongly recommend that you guys check that out by clicking the upper right hand corner of your screen. And this is something I published on Discord. I was just sharing some of my thoughts. I said that right around here, Ripple is going to pump, and it's going to pump hard. Now, this is not financial advice, of course, but I do think this isn't over just yet. I think it's just started its pump. I think it could potentially go a lot higher than what it's sitting on today. Also, if this swing trade that I've opened ends up netting me $500, if you're a member of my Discord, I'll be giving $25 to a lucky winner to celebrate my small victory. If you guys want to be eligible, make sure you guys go ahead and join my Discord. Bitgo expands global presence with regulated custody in Switzerland and Germany. This bit of news is more for my subs who are using the lending platforms. We know that Bitgo is used by Nexo, Celsius, and a handful of other platforms that I've covered on this channel. And Bitgo basically custodies all our assets. So when we send money to Celsius or Nexo, it's actually going to Bitgo, since they handle all the custody. And to me, it's a very good sign that they're growing, especially in countries like Switzerland and Germany, where the regulations are pretty stiff for financial institutions. So it shows you that, number one, there's a demand for this service. Number two, it shows you that this company is doing something right, that new jurisdictions are opening their door. And they wouldn't have gotten in if they didn't have clients lined up. And as they acquire more and more clients, become more legitimized, I think it's going to become a lot easier for them to get insurance. Currently, they offer their clients $100 million in insurance. And moving forward, as they acquire more clients, I think it'll become a lot easier for them to get more comprehensive insurance at a lower cost. We saw it happen with Gemini Custody, and I would imagine that not too far into the distant future that Bitgo will get additional coverage. CFTC's Technology Advisory Meeting to meet on February 26th. At this meeting, the TAC will hear presentations on stablecoins, audit trails, compliance solutions, and cryptocurrencies self-regulatory organizations, insurance, and custody. The TAC will also discuss the vote on a recommendation from its cybersecurity subcommittee regarding the financial services sector coordinating council cyber security profile. And if you follow this channel on the regular, you guys watch my weekly crypto updates. I've talked about the implications surrounding Kelly Loeffler, the ex-CEO of Bakkt, taking the Georgia Senate seat and how she sits on the Agriculture Committee, which oversees the CFTC. And she's been pretty busy. She knows how the game works. She knows that if she wants to be productive in Washington, that she has to make connections with strong players. And she's already started to do that. I'm not sure if she's like Hillary Clinton, who has a public opinion and a private opinion, but I do know that publicly Loeffler has been supporting Trump. And Trump has actually taken notice. And the clip that I'm about to play you was when Trump got acquitted by the Senate. He came out and basically did this sort of impromptu 1 hour long speech. And he basically recognized all his supporters in this speech. And Kelly Loeffler happened to be one of them.
And she's been so supportive, and she's been downright nasty and mean about the unfairness to the president. And Kelly Loeffler, I appreciate very much. Thank you.
From my observations, I think Trump is the type of person where if you scratch his back, he'll scratch your back. And by the way, I follow politics very closely. I'm a political science major. That doesn't mean that my insights are gospel, but I do spend a lot of my free time watching the political news. And I think Loeffler is basically trying to position herself so that way when she does want something, that she'll have allies in Congress, in the executive branch. And so when she's overseeing the CFTC, it might make it easier for her to pass her agenda. And being the ex-CEO of Bakkt and being the wife of the owner, I think she's going to use her position and her influence to soften up the crypto regulation. Now, in terms of the market outlook, I think we need to put things into perspective by looking at past halvenings and figuring out exactly where we're at. Now, we've just went through the first accumulation prior to the halvening, and based on previous halvenings, it looks like we go through 2 accumulation phases right before the halvening, and then the price dumps, and then we're off to the races. Now, the current experience does not have to be analogous to past experiences. It doesn't have to play out the exact same way. But if we were to assume that it's going to perform something like what we've seen in the past, then we've gone through one accumulation phase, but not the second. It looks like to most people, because we haven't seen a big move like this before, that the upside from here is very limited, at least prior to the halvening. But people have to understand that the market participant composition is completely different from what it was in the past. We have a lot of different people watching, and for the first time, we have institutional money eyeing Bitcoin. Personally, I'm not convinced that we're going to make an all-time high prior to the halvening, but what I think we might see is some more upside action, more than what people at least anticipate. I think there's a potential for us to go to 14, 16K. Now, I've made all my long-term investments, so I'm sitting happy at the current prices, but I think there is some potential for us to go and hit 14 and 16K. If you look at the price of Bitcoin, we've made a full market cycle correction down, and I think from here we should just see upside action. And to date, I haven't really seen Bitcoin take off in a meaningful way. I mean, we've seen Ethereum take off pretty big. We've seen Ethereum Classic take off. Bitcoin Cash is doing phenomenally well. Those coins are looking a little bit tippy-toppy to me. I'm not suggesting that they can't go higher, but those are coins sitting on levels that I normally would sell at. But I'm hesitating because we haven't seen Bitcoin make its big move yet. I mean, in past cycles, you see the first big move up, which is the first accumulation cycle, and then you see a second big move up, which eclipses the first big move. And also, on top of that, there's some alts that haven't made their last wave up For example, Ethereum Classic, I think, is waiting to make its move again. We've seen it go up quite a bit, but I think it's due for one big move. In fact, I think it's positioning itself for another move up, which may take the token above 20. But I think it's likely to face a lot of selling pressure before it gets there. But I think there is some chance that it could crack 20. Waves is another coin that I'm watching. I was telling my subscribers and some of my followers that I'm going to be entering a position here. And since then, it's rallied up. I think that it's actually setting itself up for another big move. But the point I'm trying to make with all this is that some of these alts are positioning themselves to make another big move up. And I think they may be waiting for Bitcoin to lead the way. I think the Elliott wave pattern does a pretty good job of encapsulating general or collective market sentiment. I mean, if you look back on bull and bear markets, they're always started with 3 big moves up and they're ended with 3 big moves down. So personally, I'm still looking for some more upside in this market, and I've positioned myself accordingly. You'll have to do your own research and decide what's the best option for you guys. And I welcome you guys to join my Discord, follow me on YouTube. I mean, almost 100% of the information that I provide is for free. I do monetize my consultation services. If you're interested in that, I recommend that you guys check out my Patreon. I'll include a link in the description box below. And if you enjoyed the content, you're a fan of the work that I do, please do me a favor, like the video, drop a comment, of course, subscribe, and click the notification bell. This is Crypto One Step signing out. I'll talk to you folks next time. Bye.